Well, hi guys, good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
Good to see you too.
I hope everybody has been staying, well, out of the weather that's been crazy as everything all over the place.
There's been weather?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're in the Midwest, there's no escaping it. Like it's just.
Hey, we've had weather, Kelly. It got down to the 50s.
I know, it was the coldest I've ever been.
Hey, we're supposed to get down into the single digits later this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're talking Celsius, aren't you?
No. I did that. Like I was on a call with my team, and I was like, "It is 15 degrees here." They're like, "Celsius? That's comfortable." I'm like, "No, like Fahrenheit." They're like, "Wait, let me convert that." And like, holy cow, that's a negative 9.4 repeating in Celsius. So, like, yeah, that's not fun.
How are you doing, Corey?
The right way.
I can't
Corey's
hear
muted.
you.
Corey, you're muted. He's behind 7 mutes. Not yet. Not yet.
Right?
Today's news will
Corey's
be,
in it.
We're getting there.
Corey's in a silent
today's
film.
news will be pantomimed by Corey.
Yeah, exactly. Like just mime the panic.
Not yet. Is it? You're not. Kelly was having mic problems too, and now Corey's having mic problems. Sorry, Mike.
I'm just a problem child. What can I say?
I think Restream reset stuff again, so it
Just
did its
tell
did
me
its
when
end
you
of the
can
year
hear me.
updates.
Oh, there
we
we got a Corey now.
I didn't do anything. I
sounds
just
good.
switched inputs. I'm sorry.
You turned it off and then on again.
I did. I switched to
Basically.
Thunderbolt audio and then I switched back. So here we are. Yay.
Whatever
To answer your
works.
question,
Looking
Mike,
good.
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm great.
Yeah, I'm just gonna blame Restream updating to try and get its end of year objectives in for its performance review.
Well,
There's so much of that going on at so many companies. They're like, wait, before everybody leaves on break, I need to get this thing done so that I can count it in my 2024 goals.
so is the Discord, did it move again? People are scared.
Yeah, it keeps moving. Jason just can't help himself.
But it's still under live webcasts and news and it doesn't change every week. It's just there.
I don't know. It has changed the past 2 weeks every week.
But I see just the infosec news on the left-hand side, and it's fairly...
InfoSec News, that doesn't even exist anymore.
But Brian just posted in there today.
Well, I mean, the channel, that's
Oh.
not where the audio is. Yeah, it's called Live
not live
Webcasts
chat.
and News.
Live chat is now. Well, it's called live chat.
Also, does anyone else have an echo? Why do I have the world's quietest echo? Is it me?
Did it happen when I just joined?
No, it's not
be,
you.
It might be John.
Is that John?
It was
echo
happening
here.
before. It was just really hard to hear. Maybe it's me. Wait,
He
now it went away.
lives.
Yeah, weird
Oh.
being back.
Okay, it was John. It was all John's fault.
So let me turn down the...
It's good. It's gone now. I don't know if you changed anything, Ryan, but it's gone.
I didn't. I was pinging Kelly to make sure she knows where we are.
All right.
Kelly's never in the right room when she's supposed to be.
I have that same problem, Kelly. It's all fun.
There's still an InfoSec News chat, but that's the text for posting the news articles. It's not for hanging out with us
Yeah.
and making John read your SQL injection.
That's for growing the news articles so we can harvest them for the webcast.
That should be a
Yes.
better mic on my side.
It sounds
See?
better
A
and
better
louder.
mic, Mike.
Hey, finally
been-
I'm better.
All of us have been searching for a better mic this entire time so far.
Hey,
We have
Radis,
the
no,
how's
we
that?
haven't.
Does that sound better, Radis?
There's a delay. Radis will be in
there
touch
is.
shortly.
Yeah. But for you guys, does it sound better?
This sounds great.
So,
You know, when you're not ranting, you sound quiet.
I know. Looks like John was getting ready to cut down a tree. I am doing Christmas decorations right after this. We've got Christmas decorations to do, so I was able to drive home. Are we ready to kick this off?
Always.
Sir.
There's still an echo somehow, but I'll just roll with it. As long as the audience isn't complaining, I'm good.
I don't hear the echo.
I don't hear an echo.
I
All
don't
right,
hear an
well,
echo.
It's just me.
It's just you.
Oh, I heard Wade and didn't see him.
I'm
Freak
going
out.
crazy. That's good to know. I'm so happy about that.
It was Wade's mustache talking.
It was.
Oh, look at that. I still got the old holiday open. Let's go with that one today.
Ooh. Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. I don't know why the hell I'm kicking this off because I haven't been here in like a month. It's been travel, it's been Thanksgiving, I've been teaching, it's been crazy, but we got a whole bunch of notable stories. We've got the FBI telling people, hey, don't use your cell phones anymore, which honestly is probably a really good idea, to be honest with you. We have ASA web VPN vulnerabilities. We've got new rule proposing blocking data brokers from selling data. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Joined by the cast of characters that we normally have. Thanks to all of you for showing up. Folks, which story do we want to start with today? Is anyone... nothing's particularly ranty for me. And I'm all ranted out. I
would
You're
like
all
to
ranted
rant.
out?
Can I
no.
rant? Who will let me rant for a little bit?
Go with it.
Have
Let's
I
go
have
with
I
it.
been
What
on this
story?
show enough? Okay, I want to rant about the SMS thing. I want to rant about the SMS.
Got it. Good one.
Because this is personally impactful to me, and I'm curious to get the audience and everyone else's take on this. Has anyone in the last couple months just feel like Android and iOS have failed us, and we're all just, who knows what we're sending? I don't know if
Not
it's just
angry
me.
enough, Corey. More
I don't know
ranty.
if it's okay. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm getting random group threads that I'm not even part of. I'm getting dropped off of other group threads. Every time someone with a pixel replies, it creates another group thread with someone else. It's like this whole RCS SMS thing. I don't know if it's just me, but the text message, it's a disaster. Like, in my opinion, I don't know. Has anyone else experienced this? Like, you're sending text, you're sending RCS messages. It's switching back and forth. You're getting group threads from people with Androids that shouldn't exist, and I don't know. Is this just me?
Yeah,
It's just you.
This isn't a recent thing for me. No, I've been frustrated with that for some time. So
I'm surprised you guys still use SMS. Like
Well,
haven't
you
used
shouldn't.
SMS
So the
in
FBI
years,
says you
right?
don't. Here's what I'm going to do. In my group thread with all these people, I'm going to say the FBI says not to use SMS anymore, and that'll fix all the problems.
yeah,
Obviously, because
Make friends.
I will say I do
What's
think.
What's driven me nuts is getting a message from somebody with an iPhone that is sent RCS, but it's the wrong version of RCS. So to reply to them, I have to go to SMS. Otherwise, I get sorry, this is undeliverable.
It's so bad. One of my friends is sending emojis in Italian. I'm not even joking. This is possible. I don't know what's happening.
It's a spicy meatball.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I don't get it. It's terrible. So basically, now we have a government recommendation to not use SMS, and I think this is actually a callback to remember how we talked about the ISPs and telecoms got hacked by China. I bet you that's related to this. That's just
It
my
has to
guess.
be. It has to.
it seems to be. Yep.
So there's a couple of like quick things I want to throw out there. I'm going to start with the first one. So if we get a news story that these telcos have been compromised, and now the FBI is saying, hey, how about you don't use unencrypted SMS? Tells me it's not fixed. Like, or they're not confident enough that it was fixed. The story was that they got access to the systems that the United States government used, or they used whenever the United States government came with a warrant, so they can gain. Like, holy. And now for the FBI to say, hey, that system that we put in so we could tap all your phones for the courts, it got hacked. So how about you guys just stop using the thing that we were like, there's so many layers to this that are absolutely mortifying. I don't think that we're nearly at the end of this. And to be honest, this story tells me that they don't know either.
Last I heard from CISA, and I was trying to quickly find the news article from them, and I can't quite pull it up yet. They were saying, yes, these were compromised, No, we still have not figured out if we've even ejected them from the networks yet.
Yeah.
So you should be using encryption. And then the other day I just saw something say, yes, the FBI says use encryption, but use it with our backdoors in it only.
Well, Blackvest
Well,
has the great quote.
yes,
Blackvest
totally.
says, it has to be bad when the United States government is recommending we use communication tools they cannot actively monitor.
That is so true. That is like the quote of the year right there.
And I keep thinking, you know, we talk about all these hacks and all these things, whether it's Snowflake or whatever. I seriously think that the worst hacks are the hacks that you do not know about, or the ones that you do not get your head around completely. And this is very much in that category of, this is bad. We can't get our head around this completely. And I'm going to throw this out there, and I don't want this to become a political conversation, but a lot of the management at CISA is YOLOing out in like less than 60 days.
Oh yeah, Jen's already gone. Jen's already gone.
What
Bad.
the hell? Like, if we're looking at the investigation, one of the biggest things from an incident response perspective is continuity of leadership, continuity of the leads. Like, all of a sudden we're blowing all that crap up. And I don't know, I don't want to sound Pollyanna-ish on this, but I'm going to, because, hey, what the hell? Like, this is bad. Like, am I the only one that looks at this? And like, when the FBI is saying, hey, you shit we can't tap, and we don't know how bad it is. By the way, they got access to all these telcos. I'm freaking out a little about this. And I know it's not the first time, like we had the OMB hack. There's been a number of hacks, but this is right up there. And I think it's right up there because we don't have a full understanding of the extent of just how bad it was, is, and is going to continue to be moving forward.
I would agree with that. I think the scariest thing is you're right on the nail with that one, John, is the IR continuation over it all. And what's going to happen if they're even going to continue with that. There's so many rumors flying around about they're going to cut out CISA, they're going to cut out this. The next administration is going to change things up and shake things up. And when you're in the middle of something this serious that can affect government communications, let alone any other communications, who knows how deep these guys actually are in. It really starts opening up your eyes. And I think us on the know that understand this sort of stuff, it's triple scary for. I think with all the breaches that we've had, though, the general public's just like, oh, yeah, it's just another breach. Okay, we'll just do this a little bit and everything's going to be fine. And there's a serious thing without the continuity that things might not be fine going forward.
Yeah.
And that's the scariest part.
And I think, Mike, and once again, I don't want to get into politics and I don't want to deal with the moral equivalence. However, if we can take it back a couple of steps, we are at the point right now where we're going into a situation like this, where like, this is bad. And people are looking at each other in America as though the greatest enemy is the Democrats. The greatest enemy is the Republicans. And seriously, the people that broke into these systems are getting exactly what they effing want. And once again, I don't want to play the moral equivalency game on this, but just like you said, we're going into this, we're losing all of these really smart people that are working through this. And I just have this fear that we're getting into a situation where we are going to be fighting each other more than actually dealing with the cyber threats. And seriously, that is exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, and
all we need is a bipartisan incident response team. What could go wrong?
And I don't know how we're going to get that, right? You know, how are we going to make that happen?
We're going into the holiday season. What are you going to tell your friends, your family, your church, your PTA group about this? And this is a serious question because you're right, John. We're technical. We mostly understand this, but my mom and dad, they don't understand this. What are we going to tell them?
I've had that discussion, and Kelly, that was one of the things I was going to say, because I've talked to people on, you know, what are we going to tell them? How are we going to effectively like make encryption sexy again? It's one of the things to where whenever you have like any sort of huge technology change, people don't care about the benefits for it. It's like I go, okay, when they took away like the little like actual like keyboards on the phone and made it touchscreens, and all the tech nerds were like, well, this is beneficial. People didn't care, but when you make it like, oh, it's like the hot new thing to have is one of these devices that doesn't have like the little buttons. Okay, cool. People will do that. I like there was a strategy from Mike Basil for getting people to use encrypted communications. If they reach out to you on encrypted comms, you reply right away. If they reach out to you through unencrypted comms, yeah, still respond, but they're going to have that noticeable delay and go, oh, hey, if I want to get a hold of John or Kelly or Wade right away, I need to use the Signal app that they're talking about. Because otherwise, like, yeah, you're going to sit there and go, all of us on the newscast, we're going to be using encrypted comms, but you're right, like our friends, family, they don't care. They don't care. They don't want to use it. But if they sit there and they go, "Oh, hey, I missed out on this awesome conversation," or I missed out on like awesome memes because I wasn't on Signal. Hey, I mean, do that. Like, have it be that like your great your fun times are on encrypted communications.
There are two problems that I run into with that, Alec, and the problem isn't from our side and our vantage point. Signal limits the size of files that you could transfer back and forth, and a lot of people will use SMS to transfer pictures, to transfer videos of their kids going back and forth, besides posting on things like Facebook, etc. Number two is there's been a lot of blowback on systems that have been encrypted in the past, and probably the biggest one that could be used that could offer it, WhatsApp. People are just like, no, it's either they're all in or they're all out, and there's so many of them out there. And then you get things like Apple with their RCS versus SMS, and the phone makers wanting to control these things. There's too many choices out there. Choice can be a very good thing, but until we all standardize and make sure that it's got the features that the people want, they're still going to fight back on it. It's not as easily usable for them for doing everything that they necessarily want, potentially, as using SMS. And this has been a problem with us trying to get them to not use SMS for two-factor authentication also. It's really easy to go ahead and say, yes, just text me the code. And that's better than nothing. But it's not as secure as using an app or using a FIDO key. And we're going to now be fighting this on another front with encryption.
I think it's so. I mean, you're not wrong.
I think it's secure by default. That's basically the world we need to live in, and I think now we have government backing for this. We know CISA's big on this. The future of CISA is unknown, but things need to be secure by default, right? So Apple needs to be, I mean, they already did it, but forcing RCS by default or allowing it by default allows encrypted comms by default between Android and iOS. That's an important step. For the, going back to the like argument for the, regular people, lay people, I think this closes the loop on the but why question. You can say, hey, family, we're going to use encrypted chats or whatever. And they're going to be like, but why? And before the argument was just, well, because this and, because it's better in security. And like we're sitting here being hackers being like, hacker stuff. But now we don't say hacker stuff. We say, because we know that China is actively monitoring our communications because they've compromised the ISPs and we don't know how deeply they are. And like, I think that's the answer to the question of but why. And we have it's not just fear mongering. You're no longer a tinfoil hat by saying, well, what if China hacked our communications? It's actually documented. We know it's happening. And so to me, that's a big push. I don't know. That's just me.
I think a lot of this.
Here's what I'm going to push. The secure by design. I think the whole secure by design thing that CIS is pushing is bullshit. And I want them to push a completely different angle, right? Because they want to go to Microsoft, they want to go to Google, they want to go to Apple, and they want to be, we want to pledge that you guys are going to be secure by design, and there's talk about liability and all that. All bullshit. Don't look into it. That's not going to solve anything. Here's what's going to solve it. Open by design. Things are only fragile until they break. If it goes back to Cory Doctorow, the coming war on general purpose computing, and I've been talking about this for years and referencing this, all of these vendors are pushing for closed systems. Closed on the phones. Apple's trying to close it on the computer with less success, but they're creating these closed systems. And with these closed systems, it becomes far more difficult to test. And there's this belief that if it's a closed system and it's more difficult to test, it's more secure, and that is bullshit. They need to have systems that are more open. I should be able to put in a kernel level debugger on my phone. I should be able to put in a sniffer on my phone. I should be able to intercept any and all the traffic that goes from any app that I pay for and I run on my device on my phone. You want to secure things? Open them up. Get them as open as you possibly can so it's general purpose, so that people can like start analyzing and they can start looking at all the traffic that's coming and going on their system. They can start looking at the APIs, and it's not a handful of people testing the security of SMS on a semi-regular basis. That is very, very limited who can actually do that, and it's a gated community on who open everything up, because things are only fragile until they break, right? Yeah, and Wade, yeah, this is an angry John. Sorry about that. But this is one of the things that pisses me off. You have all these people that are like, we need to have secure by design. We need to get secure. Dude, Microsoft had an initiative back in 2001 that was called the Get Secure, Stay Secure initiative. I still have the effing t-shirt in my closet somewhere. We've been talking about the secure by design principle for over 23 years. And the only way it actually works is if we open up these things so that people can install, they can get root access on their devices, they can start analyzing their apps, they can start analyzing the communications, break everything, hack all of the things, because things are only fragile until they break. That's how you get to some level of security, because we're not allowed to test the ad delivery systems. We're not allowed to test tons of APIs that these different applications are using. And you know that they're riddled. You know that they're wide open. They're going to have massive security vulnerabilities. Open it up. Open by design is secure by design. Things are only fragile till they break. All this other stuff is lip service.
Yeah,
I have
that's
something to say about
Go ahead.
dealing with getting your relatives and stuff like that. InfoSec at least wary, right? And the thing I've done is like slowly implement. Every time I talk to my parents, I talk about a breach every single time, just to get them like understanding of what's going on. You guys like totally. My parents have a small business, right? They definitely have stuff going on. They know what I do, and it's definitely slowly like gone into their head where they use secure apps, right? And this weekend, my mom called me frantic because she got an email that one of her systems was logged in via an IP address that wasn't too far away from her, but was very suspicious, right? It got to the point where I'm walking her through password setups, all this stuff changed. After many hours of talking to her, I just installed AnyDesk and just did it all myself. But what this led to is me realizing that she's at least thinking about it nowadays. And we implemented MFA on a couple different things, and we not just cell phone, right? We implement actual token MFA. And then, of course, at the end of it, I go and look at that email and realized it was her IP address that alerted, and it just rotated.
You know what Wade
So
isn't saying? He held their grandchild ransom until she did good security.
I wish.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think John's thing of like open it to secure it is a good, like, if you're gonna thump a drum, I think that's a good drum to thump. The other thing I was gonna just throw out there for Kelly is, should ISPs, like in this case, we're talking about ISPs getting hacked and people monitoring their communications. That to me ups the risk, because if you're in the middle, you have everything like that's unencrypted. You have DNS, you have, whatever protocol someone forgot to secure 10 years ago, you have access to that. So I guess my question for Kelly is, do you think that ISPs should be subject to additional security or government regulations, or is there anything we can do so that them specifically are, forced into better security standards, or what do you think?
Well, that's actually a great question, Corey. And it's been a debate for a couple of decades, actually. Where do telcos fall in? We talked about the whole Section 230. That's, are you an internet publisher or not? We had that conversation about Facebook and some of the other social media sites, but exactly where do telcos fall in? There are Congress people who are advocating that telcos are mission critical utilities that should be regulated as such. But nothing's really come out of Congress because, well, they're busy doing other things.
Do you think this will get them? Do you think this will get them fired up? Because I mean, it's directly targeting them. I mean, we already know that one has reported that
I hope so. Well, it's funny, that kind of leads into our next article about course, I just forgot it. The Federal Consumer Bureau. They-
Oh, the
anyway,
blocking data brokers.
yes, thank you. The
Yeah.
blocking data brokers. But anyway, what I was getting at
Consumer
there,
Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB.
CFPB. A lot of people are asking, what's regulation going to look like under the Trump administration? There's been overtures that there's going to be deregulation across the board. Other people are saying, well, there might be a bit status quo for a little bit. But if you're in compliance like I am, I do think we need to assume that there's going to be a bit of deregulation, especially with the new proposed head of the SEC. You remember the SEC the last couple of years has been strong on enforcement and cyber controls and cyber disclosures. If we're rolling back regulations, it may be we're going to turn the other cheek with the telcos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think it's tough because it's one of those things. What are they going to do? Just turn off the servers? There's not there's not. They are. It's like, how did you read this email about regulation if not for the ISP itself, right? Like it's really tough to shut that off or backtrack it, or it's an existing long-standing thing and it's become critical infrastructure, I think. So I do think it's
Sorry.
crazy that they're not regulated like critical infrastructure, but
Well, whenever you're
here we
talking
are.
about like data brokers, I keep saying this, like, seriously, all you have to do is take that information, that PII, you classify it as PHI, and then you put HIPAA regulations on top of it. And it has to be treated with that same level of rigor. Because, you get someone's browsing history, you get someone's ad history, you get someone's, actually just their browser history is enough. That is something that should be treated as PHI. It should be
Well, but
treated.
then every company on the planet has to be HIPAA certified and HIPAA
Yep.
compliant.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And then all of a sudden their business models start blowing it up, and all of a sudden they can't be making money on targeted ads. And all of a sudden they can't be running AI algorithms to manipulate you as much as they do now to try to keep you on a website as long as possible. Yeah. A lot of shit's got to change real quick. When you do
Okay.
that, but I agree with Kelly.
I mean,
I
yeah,
don't
it would
think it's gonna happen.
destroy a lot of. I mean, imagine Black Hills Information Security. We would have to be HIPAA compliant, and it would be terrible. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it would be great, but it would shove a lot of small
we don't
businesses
track
into the
those
corner.
types of metrics like that. Well, wait a minute. Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Scratch that.
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
have
you're
my
talking
phone
about
number in a
Flare.
spreadsheet, so we have to be HIPAA compliant.
Yeah.
Well,
But whenever
okay,
you're
now
talking
it's
about
my
it, we
turn to
don't
rant.
sell that data.
Go, Kelly, go. Go, Kelly,
Okay.
go.
So
Go ahead.
Kelly gets ranty for a second here. There's no such thing as HIPAA certified. So
Nothing.
let's scratch that from our vocabulary.
Well, then why is it on this website that I just submitted all my data to? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
HIPAA is really, remember, HIPAA is meant to cover covered entities and business associates. Unless Black Hills defines ourselves as a covered entity or a business associate, who gives a crap about HIPAA, quite frankly? And honestly, there's talk of a revamping of HIPAA, before the administration change, of actually making HIPAA a bit more specific and technical control based instead of, hey, you should do these good things. So
Yeah,
if somebody
that's
tells me they do HIPAA, I'm honestly really not that impressed.
Well, I mean,
But-
yeah, that's a good point.
But if you all of a sudden say that all of the information that's being tracked in Google for ads and Amazon for ads and Facebook for ads is covered under PHI, that's going to change their behavior and the way that they handle it.
Yeah,
But you-
but it would also ruin the business model for a lot of free products that people probably like. Like, it would basically force everyone to pay for everything. But I will say, on the whole, like, compliance regulation, we have seen some state regulations that specifically do apply to data brokers. Like Oregon, where I live, has one. California has one that basically requires them to do certain things and not store certain things. So I do think that a national framework for that would probably be useful to say, not, let's go a little bit less broad than every company, every ad-based revenue model is now doesn't exist. Let's say every data broker has to comply with these things. And we talked about this when National Public Data got breached. These, just like ISPs, these data brokers have access to and control over data that is hugely damaging to every American or every citizen that they cover. So having special regulations that apply to them, or special requirements for them to not get breached a lot
So-
would be cool.
So I want to ask you a question
Unfortunately,
on that, Corey. Hold on. I got a question. So on that, do you think in that scenario, and Kelly too, would it be better to move from a compliance framework to an accountability framework? And I bring that up because people were like bringing up again and again the concepts of GDPR. And GDPR, there is no like, here's how you're GDPR compliant. It's literally an accountability framework. If you get compromised, these are what the fines actually look like.
I mean, I think, yeah, I totally get that's a good thing to think about. And I will say, like, it kind of dovetails into our next article about vodka. But I think the part of the problem is like these data brokers are kind of fly by night and small.
Yeah,
and if they got slapped with accountability, they would just say, all right, bye, peace, we're gone. We're done.
That's the frustration with data brokers and getting your stuff cleaned up is you get it taken down and then it's just a whack-a-mole where it's like, oh well, it's back up to where it's just sort of like, well, I told BHIS to take it down, but it's like, well, this is BHID. It's different. Like we're completely different entity, and we're absolutely compliant with this. But if there was some sort of accountability, being like, no, this data has been marked by the owner, which should be the individual, as I don't want this out there among the data brokers. If you are a data broker and you see something, I'm just coming up with I'm just spitballing here. But if you come across something that is tagged as this needs to be scrubbed.
Totally.
Then
you
shouldn't have it like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like a central kind of database or whatever. I mean, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but a central like registry for who's allowed to have data and who's it's like, I mean, again, it's almost
get out
like
of here.
It's almost like we have this, list of approved data brokers or, that kind of thing of like, and then those have to be, if you're a data broker, you have to be compliant with takedown requests. It's the same thing we're in with.
Says the king
lot
of
of
info stealers. Can I just point
I
that
know.
out?
I think honestly, while we've got some really good ideas thrown out here, I don't think making them regulations through some three-letter agency in the government or some department in the government is going to be the final answer, because there's too much that could take that away at this point in time. And we've seen that with different regulations overall. I think, honestly, what we need to do is get an act of Congress, an actual law on the books that's not so easily removed for even the companies themselves to give a hoot about.
I want to, but Mike, if you're talking about regulation, the same problem exists for laws. So I'm going to ask again, do you think we need to move away from compliance and here's the rules to accountability, where we don't necessarily care what you're doing to secure your environment, but if you get compromised, these are the levels and these are the percentages that you're going to be held accountable to? Because I feel like sometimes, and I really do feel this way about a lot of compliance frameworks, that so many organizations treat it as a minimum. Like, oh, no, we're fine. We did our due diligence because we met the minimum. But that was never the goal of a lot of these different compliance frameworks. And if we just move to an accountability framework, it's like, y'all do what you want to do, but we're going to hit a solid percentage if you get compromised and we found that you were deficient. Is that better?
I think it is a little better. I mean, I think if you have to choose, but I will say the problem is the data is already lost. The impact is completely unmitigated. It's just like I mean, I guess you do have cases of like a T-Mobile that just gets breached every year on the year, and there's like nothing's ever going to change about it. Maybe, maybe it would prevent that type of thing from happening. I think at the very least it'd be better than nothing.
And
right?
that's what we're trying to change, right? Like if an incident happens, you're right. Cows are out of the barn. That's tough. What we're trying to do is change behavior of organizations before these breaches occur.
Yeah.
And what is the thing that we can do in this industry that the government can do to be able to effectively impact and change behaviors for the better? And I feel like we keep coming back to compliance frameworks, and every state tries that. Like Florida's, critical infrastructure compliance framework. It's like,
right.
That's not a solution. Passing laws, I don't think that's a solution, right? And I keep wondering, and maybe people in Europe know better, does GDPR have a positive impact on organizations? In Europe,
there's a lot of pop-ups about cookies. That's all we know.
That's all that we see, right? That's all. That's like GDPR means annoying pop-ups on websites.
Yeah,
right?
Well, true.
I think the accountability framework would help for organizations, but not for like these small like fly by nights. It's even like the similar thing with ransomware as you see, places that are even supposed to be HIPAA compliant going, you know what, like if we get ransomware, I guess I'm just going to shut down my chiropractic's office and start up a new one. Like that, just take the server,
Yeah.
put it in the garbage, and go. Same type of thing. If you get hit with accountability, it goes, oh well, I guess we're just gonna shut it down and spin it up somewhere else. But for large organizations where they go, okay, well, we can't really just like, take down Delta and rename it like Echo or Foxtrot. You can't just rebuild it like that. You go, okay, well, their accountability stings, but yeah, like your local car dealership that goes, oh yeah, we still have your driver's license floating around that we scanned from that time you took a test drive like 18 years ago.
And Dronin had a comment. I feel like that kind of structure would discourage reporting and attempt to hide it. I disagree with that. And that's kind of came up, Alex, and what you're talking about there too. It's not like we live in a wonderful world where everyone wants to disclose when they've been breached, right? There's already a tremendous amount of organizations that try to hide it. I guess we're going to have to switch to another topic.
Well, okay, Kelly, what were you going to say?
We didn't solve
before?
this one. We failed.
We
Sorry.
did.
Kelly, what were you going to say about
I have
GDPR?
two little things on GDPR, Mr. Strand. Number one, GDPR introduced Americans to the concept that information about me is my person and belongs to me, my eye color, my hair color. So that was one thing I think has been successful with GDPR. Remember, GDPR was spun out of Nazi Germany and understanding those defining attributes of ethnicity. I can't even say it. Ethnic background. Yes, thank you. And second of all,
I got one for pronunciation. It's John 1, Kelly 100. For those of you keeping track at home, this is a great day for me. Carry on.
Secondly, we have the CCPRA, the California Consumer Protection Regulations, when it comes to privacy. So the whole California approach to privacy was influenced very much by GDPR. So perhaps organizationally, maybe it didn't make somebody's job easier, but it introduced the concept of privacy into the United States more frequently to organizations. And I think it started the snowball rolling.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. The other, before we talk about vodka, there was one kind of last final follow-up thing I wanted to throw in there on this discussion, which is I think we just need to live in a world where we know that the public impact of a breach is functionally zero. Like there's the public disclosure of a breach from, public relations and, hit to reputation and all that is, I think, basically from a risk perspective, zero. Like that, we just have to. The whole yes, companies still try to hide it. Yes, it looks bad, but we live in a world where functionally every company has been breached one way or the other. Whether it was a third party supply chain, one of their employees, breaches are not a yes or no thing. It's not like someone could come to me and say, "Hey, you're a security expert. What bank can I use that would never be breached because they've never been breached?" I'd be like, "Well, I mean, honestly, I don't have a good answer for you because the ISPs are breached, all the healthcare processing companies are breached, all the insurance,
breached.
Yeah, telcos are. Yeah, if a telco is breached, then it doesn't matter what company's breached because the center. So basically, I think we just need to live in a post-public impact from a breach world. We need to say the stick of, well, you're bad and you have to publicly disclose this is not a stick. That's just a fact. So we just need to move on and say we need other consequences for organizations that are material and relevant. We see with ransomware, companies are hugely impacted and pay because they have to because they can't get their stuff back. Versus if this is data leakage, they're like, we'll notify.
I just say annual revenue-based fines. Right? How much you making? That's how much you're gonna pay.
Yeah.
I want to argue with you. I want to disagree with you. I can't. I mean, I
no, you can. Don't worry.
No, and I love taking contrarian positions, but one of Kelly and I's friends, David Rice, had a really great book. Can't remember. It wasn't Freakonomics. That's a different book, but it was a play on that. Geekonomics.
Datanomics?
No, Geekonomics. The real cost of software security. And he tried to make an argument that there was a cost of insecure software and there was a cost of these things. And I think it was very well researched. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. I think he was wrong. I think Corey was right. When you look at stock price,
Clip
and look
that.
at all of these different things, like what are the incentives of trying to do good security? And seriously, I mean, we joke about it all the time now, but getting a CISO is just basically for many organizations, like you're going to be the guy that's going to take the fall when the hack happens.
Yes.
That's your job. What's my purpose
Okay.
in life? Taking the fall during a breach. Oh God.
Okay, but
I
okay,
just-
this is
that's
so I,
cynical.
this is the perfect segue. So, and this is again, I keep saying we're going to talk about vodka. Let's push that one further into the future because I actually want to get everyone's temperature on this. We've already talked. This has been talked to death in the public news, but talking about the United Healthcare CEO. Does anyone see a connection between cybersecurity and this? Is this a potential impact? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm
None.
just no. You don't think it has anything
They
to do
took
with
all the all of the healthcare people took all their about me's off their website. Like, I
Does
think
anyone-
maybe
I
there's
guess
some
does
like
it-
OSINT
yeah.
stuff,
Protection.
but
I will say that the thing that I see as a similarity in this is like I hate it whenever something in computer security happens and everyone tries to turn it into a D and an versus an R thing. And I see that here, right? Where people are like, oh, well, these liberals are celebrating that this guy was shot. And like liberals are like, no, there's lots of conservatives that are celebrating that. And it became a political issue when the fact is a dude was killed. That is tragic. It is absolutely tragic that healthcare is so fundamentally broken that they're literally creating AI programs to automatically deny claims. There's so much tragedy here. And the only thing I see as a similarity into it is I hate it whenever people use this as leverage to try to attack each other. Like you talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? I hate it whenever people are talking about computer security and they're like, well, that's all Barack Obama's fault, or this is Trump's fault. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And we can't get past that. And I think that that's the similarity that I see on this is it's being weaponized. And I hate that. It doesn't allow us to solve the fundamental problems.
Yeah, I think it's just a bunch of news articles were typed before the thing happened.
They're just ready
and
to, it's
They
fill
were
in the
ready to
blank.
go. Yeah, because if you think about it, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. These are how, what is the straw that breaks the camel's back? Well, it's defined like by a moment like this, or maybe this is, who knows how it will plan out in the future. But
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
I don't think there's a security impact, but I will say when we talk about scapegoats, when we talk about risk, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen an example of like someone being having a physical reprisal against them because of a breach. But when we start talking about scapegoats and things, it gets a little bit sketchy of like, if let's say, you are the chief security officer of a company who got breached and that breach led to some huge personal impact for someone. I mean, you got to be thinking about that kind of thing, right? Like you got to be worried about that kind of thing. So I don't know.
here's something that does concern me. I'm willing to bet that more organizations are spending more money on personal security for their executives than they would spend on increasing security if they were breached.
Yeah.
Like seeing this happen, this executive gets shot down, and somebody mentioned he's got kids, he's got a spouse. And yes, I completely disagree with what he did at United Healthcare, but shooting someone down in front of their house, not cool. It's gut wrenching. But
Right.
all of a sudden now you cannot find bodyguards. All of a sudden now you cannot get personal protection for executives. And I really wish to God that organizations would react the same way about cybersecurity whenever somebody gets compromised and react in that type of visceral way to protect their organizations. And Brian, time traveling nerd herder, nailed it absolutely. Kinetic attacks always hit harder. This is a much more relatable attack, I think, to executives. And I don't know. It's once again, it's a tragic thing, and I really wish it wasn't politicized at all.
All right, let's talk about vodka.
Vodka.
Yeah, going forward,
Finally.
we should all take a
Finally.
shot of vodka after all that bad news, and we'll have we can't.
Too bad.
Oh,
yeah,
I
too
have
bad.
bad
It's not
news
gonna
for
be
you.
so.
I have more bad news. Woo!
God
So I
damn
mean,
it. What did I get
this is
into?
kind of a. So I mean, basically, the news is that Stoli, which is a Russian-affiliated vodka brand, but also has a U.S. business, has announced that they're shutting down operations in the U.S. I think probably this is a little bit of throw in the towel kind of COVID style. Like, this is bad, we're just going to give up. But it is related specifically to a data breach and ransomware attack. So essentially, the ransomware took down their ERP, which, for those that don't know, ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning, which is basically how much vodka do we send to New York City to accommodate for someone getting assassinated. So like that, planning resource is a business critical asset for this company. And instead of figuring out how to restore it or pay the ransom, or, they just didn't have backups, they're just saying we're done. So this is rare, actually.
It read like they were already on their back foot, though, because they had
they definitely
assets
were, right?
that were seized by Russia. So it's just sort of like if you're trying to make do with what remains, and then what remains gets ransomed, you're just sort of like, well, I guess they're just gonna take the ransomware punch in the head. So
they were still the crazy part is, though, they were still worth over $100 million, right? And they defaulted on $78 million worth of debt due to this ERP system failing, which I would say, like, someone that big failing due to a ransomware hack is pretty crazy.
I agree. We've seen it before, but never at this scale.
Can we point to these guys and see, this is why this matters? You should.
Yes,
totally.
It's the same thing as the FBI saying no more SMS, but for ransomware.
Yeah,
I would say that, but
Bronwyn brought up ransomware kills about 60% of the small businesses that get hit. The difference is they're not in the news.
No, and they don't make Stoli.
Right.
The second half of this article was pretty interesting, where I didn't realize all the drama behind the Stoli and the Russian part, where the actual president actually had to flee Russia in the 2000s and become a UK citizen. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just a crazy story.
Hey, I'll add one other thing to that. This isn't the first time where we're dealing with nation states and taking over alcohol industries. There's a great book.
There's a long, proud history in the hacking community.
Okay, for those of you who like a good read and it's Christmas time, you might have a little extra time on your hands. There's a great book about the Cuban government taking over. What's the name one that starts with Bacardi's? Taking over most of the Bacardi family's assets and land. So this isn't something that's new.
Is that what happened in 151?
No, it caught on fire.
Yeah. There's another situation, not necessarily ransomware, but I remember when the fires were hitting California's wine country really hard. There was a fake email that went out, I think, from Jackson Family Wines, not from them, but somebody pretending to be them, saying we need to raise money for all of these people that have lost so much, and it was all fake. And that was a pretty scary attack, because there was a significant amount of money that the attackers were able to pull that down. So there's another alcohol one. But once again, they weren't compromised. It was just somebody faking and saying, "Hey, on our behalf, let's help out all the farmers," and it was just a way of getting money. So.
And I'm going to go ahead and publish this eBay listing for a bottle of Stoli for $6 million. Hopefully
already
sell. Yeah, no. So another follow-up. So the UK Health Service, NHS stuff, they're also still following up on cyber attacks, trying to get battle. Or it says, the articles that register British hospitals hit by cyber attacks are still battling. So I mean, this is another example of ransomware stuff. They were attacked last week, and the intrusion hasn't been claimed. They're still trying to restore services, a week later. So obviously in vodka, you might have a week or a few weeks or a while, but in healthcare, you don't have that. You might only have hours or minutes sometimes. So I think, it's not just, funny vodka stuff. It's also, healthcare. And we found out last year with the whole Change Healthcare thing, a lot of these systems are vulnerable to, knock-on effects of ransomware.
Okay, time to get ranty again. Organizations that deal with ransomware. Now, I will make the caveat. There's relatively unsophisticated ransomware and there's very sophisticated ransomware. Some of these ransomware attacks are happening because they're missing very good basic cybersecurity hygiene. And when you look at companies and you ask them, can you give me an inventory of the IP devices you have on your network and the software that they're running? So many companies, big ones all the way down to little mom and pop, say, meh, I don't have time to do that. I don't have the tools to do that. And at that point, I have to say that's BS. I really do believe if we would take cybersecurity hygiene a bit more seriously, these ransomware attacks would dip. John,
I mean,
fight me on this.
I'm not going to
I'll-
fight you on that.
The only thing I will say is that I do think I've been reading this book about ransomware called it's about the ransomware hunting team, which is like the people that they mostly focus on like consumer based ransomware, but they like decrypt it and give out the keys. But anyway, I think ransomware is currently the most. I mean, I know we talk about business email compromises being profitable for threat actors too, but I do think like APTs have really shifted towards ransomware models for like I think back in the day you could have a basic hygiene and get away with surviving a ransomware attack, but I think nowadays threat actors are so advanced on the APT side deploying ransomware that like by the time they deploy it, they're so deeply embedded. They're so like, I mean, you're not wrong that like, you know, you can, it's not like it's an unstoppable attack, but I will say that like some of these types of organizations that are deploying these ransomwares are really, really advanced compared to what we were seeing maybe 5 years ago. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I got into a Reddit argument on this, and I shouldn't have. Somebody
I'm
was
surprised
talking
they let
about
you back on
APT
there.
That's what
groups
Reddit is
and
for,
use
John.
Specific techniques, and I'm like, the attackers will use any and all techniques at their disposal that you present to them. If you have a vulnerability, they're going to go after it. And somebody's like, yeah, no, they just use a handful of techniques and they move on. I'm like, that was true a few years ago.
I'll fight you
on.
on that. I'll fight you on that.
Sure.
So yeah, they may use any tactic, but the moment you get them to step out of their confidence and their SOPs, right, they're more likely to make a mistake.
Oh, I agree with
And
that.
then you're more
That's
likely to
true.
catch
You
them.
shot statistician 184?
No, I actually took your cyber deception class, and it actually says the moment an APT gets off their runway, they're more likely to make a mistake and think they're being watched.
wait.
Yeah, I
agree
was
with
gonna cite John's cyber deception because just like they don't want to get caught. So yeah, you get them off their normal
but there's different,
normal
right?
runway. They go.
Yeah, whenever you're talking about a threat actor that's a nation state threat actor, it's don't get caught. For the people that are just spraying and praying, they don't give a shit. If they get caught, they're just going to move down the line to another organization. And that brings up another point, Corey. You know, we spent a lot of time about ransomware, business email compromise. And one of the big concerns I have is there's really like two big things happening in the industry right now. You have the ransomware stuff that's very much on the surface. It's what people see. It's loss of money. It's hospitals getting locked out. And then you have telcos getting breached. And then you have SolarWinds. And you have these attacks by advanced APTs that are under the surface for an extended period of time. And I really wonder, are we focusing too much on the ransomware, too little on the ransomware, right? The amount on the ransomware versus like these really nasty nation state APTs that want to stay persistent? Because a ransomware group is not an advanced persistent threat. Their goal is not to persist.
I would disagree. I would actually disagree, especially based on this book and just general. Like, I think so. Old school ransomware, once they get caught, they just drop ransomware. But I will see, like, we have seen ransomware threat actors. So let me like distill this into a couple of points that are actually more approachable. Number one, ransomware isn't just about disabling and encrypting systems and files anymore. It's about extortion. Yep. And when you're doing extortion type ransomware, you have to ensure that you've captured enough data that they're willing to pay. That requires persistence. You can't just get in, dump the FTP server and say, check out these 6 updates for Ubuntu server. You got to pay us $10 million. Like, you have to go deep enough to get their crown jewels, their CEO's emails, corruption related stuff, or, you know, stuff that shouldn't be public at all, or that they're willing to pay. So I do think that requires persistence. It requires an embedded threat actor in a network for a long period of time, moving laterally, elevating privileges, getting access to everything, and then extorting them based on
Finally, that. I want to disagree with you. Like you and Kelly have just been on point today. But whenever you're looking at ransomware, the fact that you're going to ransom at some point completely destroys the argument of persistence. There's some level of persistence that always has to exist for any threat actor. But whenever you're talking about APTs at the nation state level, they have no desire whatsoever to ever let the victim know that they're in their network, right? You want to stay inside of their OODA loop. You want to stay undetected. You want to continue to siphon data off of that environment as long as you possibly can. The goal of an APT is to dwell as long as possible. And I
True.
think that's a
True.
fundamentally different thing than a ransomware group.
That's
They
fair. I think
want-
it's
their
from
end state is
yeah.
to announce themselves. The end state of a true APT nation state actor is to not announce themselves.
that,
So
okay, that's
here's
a
a
really
que-
good
here's-
point. Yeah, that's
Here's
a
a
really good point.
question. Here's a question for you then. What if, and this is just conjecture on at this point in time, although it wouldn't surprise me if this was true in some instances, some of these ransomware groups are being used as the front cover for the APT group, for the actual
Yes.
APT. It's look at us here, see what we're doing with this hand, while this hand over here is sneaking past 5 other things, and you're not watching that because you're watching that ransomware group.
I used to wonder that, and when we're working incidents, I don't see that, right? Like usually whenever a ransomware group announces itself, they've got hooks deep in the organization.
Yes.
And you're bringing in Mandiant, you're bringing in BHIS, you're bringing in these large firms that can come in and actually root the attacker out. A lot of these, like if you're talking about an APT group, they don't want that attention at all. Where I think it's more applicable to what you're talking about, Mike, is info stealers. And I think that that's where you have like a lot of these groups running info stealers, and APTs are buying that level of access and riding on top of it. I think that would be more in line with what you're talking about.
I mean, I guess what I would say is my response to both Mike and John here is like, I don't think there's a super clear definition of what an APT is. I will say John's
blurry
definition of it is, I think, the most specific and accurate definition of it. And I actually wish that it was more of an industry. I mean, maybe there is a definition. I'm just not personally aware of it. But I do think it's an interesting concept to say, well, if it's an APT, that means that they're never going to announce the leak, which that's, I think, probably, like from John's perspective, that's accurate. It's true. But I think when organizations, like if you went to the average CISO and said, what's an APT? I don't think they would be aware of that differentiation of like an
And
APT
that's my
does this
concern.
and a ransomware does this. So I would basically say, like, we're talking about, a company, like if I went to a CISO and said, are you prepared to defend against an APT? And I don't think they would be aware of that distinction. And I think that like the general defense, when you're talking in the industry of an APT, is like just someone who's better than a script kiddie, basically.
Yeah.
So maybe there isn't really a definition for that. It's like an advanced non-persistent threat. But I do think that there's a difference between your employee gets ransomware from something that Windows Defender should have blocked, and an organization spends 6 months compromising every one of your servers, taking down your backups, and then asking for $60 million or whatever. I don't know how we differentiate that from a terminology perspective. I'm curious if Kelly has any takes on that. Like terminology wise, what's up there with an APT but isn't persistent to the level of never announcing? Like what is that? Just advanced ransomware? I don't know.
I honestly don't know, Corey. But if you recommend me to head CISA, I'll make that a top priority.
I will. Dude, I gotta be honest.
You would be great,
I
Kelly.
would
You
so
would be great.
support. Can we start a campaign to get Kelly in charge of CISA?
Okay,
not
here's the
political.
thing, John. I actually like Kelly, and I don't want to throw her under the bus. So
I think she would rock it. I think she, yeah. We'd be getting some infosec metrics out of organizations that we desperately need.
yeah.
Well, Corey,
I
let
don't
me truly answer your question. When we've got terms like this that we don't really know how to define, or multiple people define it differently, I personally will default to how NIST defines something, because we have so many frameworks and regulations based on what
Got to
NIST.
start somewhere.
Yeah, that's where I would go, and I don't think they've defined advanced, persistent threat.
APT
Yeah.
squared.
APT squared. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's obviously terminology gets into a kind of pedantic discussion about what means this, what means that. But I do think like ransomware is so vast of a world, and has such a different level of, it hits hard depending on the threat actor. It can hit almost as hard as an APT or even harder. So it's a kind of a
Some of them are APT, right? Like the other thing to think is ransomware of North Korea compared to ransomware operators with ransomware as a service.
Different
like
games, different games. Yep.
Completely different games, right?
yeah. I don't know.
So
Anyway,
I got one thing I want to hit real quick. We were talking about the CEO getting shot, and there were some people that are like, "Oh, you're mourning this person. Do you not care about the thousands of people that they killed for denying claims?" No, that's not what I meant, and I didn't want it to come across that way or insensitive to all those people. But here's what is my concern: whenever you're dealing with political violence, if you live in a society that does not have the conversations around things like personal freedom, if you do not live in a society that has conversations around healthcare and what is good healthcare and what is happening with the society and universal healthcare, and have healthy conversations around those topics, eventually the conversation will elevate to the point of violence. And that is my concern. Because if you look at almost any society where the conversation devolves from having a conversation into actual violence, it never ends well. And it should never be celebrated. And it doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, no, this life means more than those lives. It doesn't mean that at all. Just I'm terrified about what's to come. So please understand that, whenever we're looking at here, I'm not trying to diminish the conversation of healthcare and how broken it is in this country. I just want to point out that it's really, really effing scary that we're at the point where the conversations that are going to be had on political discourse around this involve violence as part of the possible solution sets for these groups. And it's never going to be a good thing. So that's my take on it. I just wanted to clarify that because there were some people calling it out and they're like, oh, no, you don't care about the thousands of people. No, I care deeply about those people. But shooting down a CEO is not saving any of them. So that's my main concern. So must be moved from conversation to actual action.
Yeah, any
no.
final
Before we
articles?
end,
We're running out of
before
time.
we end, the DMAs are this weekend. Difference Maker
The
Awards.
DMAs.
Oh,
yeah, we
that's
have.
right.
Yeah, we have our friends
Is
Ryan
voting
and Ralph.
closed? Is voting closed?
I think it closed a while ago.
Oh, okay,
probably.
so we
They
can't
had
get
to
any
make the
last minute
plaques.
votes for Jerry and
No.
Yeah, we will have a couple. They invited us to the whatever awards dinner or whatever. So hopefully Ryan and Ralph will be there to congratulate Jerry on his win.
Yep.
But
I think Jason
we'll see.
Blanchard is going to be there. He said he's going to be there in his finest BHIS t-shirt.
Oh, okay.
Jay Strand, holy goddamn, a CEO defending other CEOs. See, this is just like, that hurts, man.
I mean, he's not wrong, but I will say okay, he's not technically wrong, but I will say I do agree with. I mean, it's the whole eye for an eye makes a world blind, kind of vibe, which is I agree with. I mean, like you can't. You're right. He didn't bring anyone back. He didn't. That person didn't.
And there's so many layers on this, right? How many people were shot in the United States the exact same day that the CEO was shot? And were there as many resources dedicated to solving those crimes as the CEO being shot? That's an inequity.
No, I mean, I will say I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, obviously this is a tough issue, but in general, I think we can all agree. I mean, it's the same thing with political violence against Donald Trump. It's like whatever your political aisle is, we can all agree that like we probably shouldn't have politicians being assassinated, just as a general rule, right?
That's bad.
So like,
because that leads to bad things. So
yeah. So I mean, anyway, but it is fun. It's a funny take though.
Yeah. It is.
Also, John, just so everyone knows, John doesn't see himself as the CEO of anything. That's a label that you applied to John. It doesn't say CEO in his email signature.
So you could argue that I do that to protect myself from the eventual revolution to keep me from getting shoved against the wall.
Is that like asking the AI to please and thank you so that you don't get killed? Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm one of the cool ones against the wall. Oh, God. I just hope we can avoid all of this shit. What is that quote from Red October? The stuff's going to get out of hand, and hopefully we all survive it on the other side. Just paraphrasing that back down. So,
all right.
So the takeaway from all of this is the Salt Typhoon using SMS. Tell your friends, your family, your loved ones about using Signal or your other appropriate apps.
iMessage, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp. I mean, I can't believe I'm recommending WhatsApp. Or is WhatsApp end-to-end?
WhatsApp?
I actually
Dude, you go
actually
overseas,
don't know.
they don't even know, like, the idea, like, literally their phones are just a device for running WhatsApp. Like,
Is it end to end? I feel like it is.
I thought
Someone said it was.
but I'm not.
Supposed to. It's supposed to.
Okay,
have
so
end-to-end.
yeah.
I
And
keep
basi-
wondering, like, we're doing all of this. It's like, everyone use Signal. And the Chinese are just like, excellent.
Okay, that's funny. I will say, like,
Ni hao ma.
this does get into, it's like you were mentioning the capitalizing on the fires, right? Like, what we don't want is, like, check out this new chat app that's super secure from
God.
Salt Typhoon. Or
Yeah.
it's just called, like, Stop Salt Typhoon with, like, a big X, and that's the chat app. No, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Something better than texting is what we need. Anyway.
I swear to God, this is like just leads me like this is another one of those episodes where I think that we should rename our podcast to be Emosec. Just nothing but negative, bad news. We should dress in black, get black eyeliner, and I can wear.
There
really
was no
black
good stunt
lipstick.
hacks. You're
There
right.
was no good stuff today. Like it was just a
Yeah.
bad one. All right, let's wrap it up.
That's
bring
not
out
true,
the
John.
Christmas-
There was a
Kelly's
going
going to be running the SZA, so that's a good news.
That would be
No.
fantastic news. Let's make that happen.
Okay, Corey, what was it? The Consumer Finance Bureau,
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau
That's it.
potentially throwing regulations on data brokers.
Yes,
Potentially.
there's a little bit of good news there.
Okay, we could also do a last little closeout that the scattered spider threat actor had bad OPSEC and got caught, and now he's going to jail probably. I mean, that's a
Jazz
little bit of a feel good.
hands.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.